think there's a few things going on, but certainly the fact that, as we believe, both sides have some incentive to have further stimulus going into the election is an important point for the markets, just like this stimulus and this European Recovery Fund is important as well, in part because as we move down the track, that greater liquidity in the markets can expand market multiples even further from here. But I think that, the market has moved a lot and will continue to move, in our view, on this virus news and how that is going. And there, too, we see some signs for optimism.
Yeah, well, without getting into the medical data, because, Mark, as far as I know, you are not an epidemiologist, nor am I not one. But I can find people that will say we're going in the wrong direction because cases are going way up. Of course, cases will only always go up due to math. You add one, it's a new record. But then I can find others who will say, well, the good news is the most important metric, fatalities, is coming down in most places. Florida had 9 fatalities on July 18th versus 96 fatalities on July 8th. So that's the most optimistic. What specifically do you look at? Because you can really take the data any way you want, if you get my point.
You're right, and I'm not an epidemiologist, and certainly getting coronavirus for many patients is a terrible disease, and methods have to be taken to mitigate that. But I think there is some data you can look at. But just think about this for a second. We've learned a lot about this disease since March. And one of the things we learned was that there were many people out in the world, in our cities, who were asymptomatic but infected. And that colored our initial understanding of the disease, how infectious it was, and how deadly it was and is. And so since March, because we've learned that, we've learned it's somewhat less infectious and it's less deadly, particularly in working age populations. And we think that is something that the market has begun to understand a little bit.
I was going to say, tie that back to the equity markets, because we don't want to debate. We've got doctors coming up later. Bring it back to the equity. What did you just say and your UBS research team? How does that relate to the stock market and what our investors should be doing who are watching and thinking, well, what should I do with my money?
Well, I think the first thing is that the measures to mitigate the virus have to be less effective if the disease is not as infectious. So some combination of wearing masks or social distancing, or the increasing number of people in our cities who have already had this disease have an impact. And then you layer upon that the better news about either drugs to help with the disease or vaccines. And of course, the more people who have had the disease, who've passed through the healthcare system, the fewer people that would potentially need to be vaccinated. And then also, as you cited, you can look at the data however you want, but there is the hospitalization rate, which is something of the social gate that we face when hospitals fill up. And there we are seeing, again, it's early days, but some of the rate of hospitalizations in places like Arizona and Texas have started to slow again.